Julia and Tom are on a boat trip in the Caribbean Sea with their two children, Cassie and Ben. Tom and Ben are fishing together. Cassie is listening to music through her headphones. Julia decides to swim in the sea near the boat. Suddenly, a strong water current starts pulling Julia away. In just a few minutes, the boat is too far from her. She is scared and shouts for help. Cassie cannot hear her because of the headphones. Ben is too focused on fishing to notice. Luckily, Tom hears Julia shouting. He drives the boat quickly toward her, jumps into the water, and brings her back safely. After this frightening moment, Julia says she does not know why the current pulled her because the sea looked calm. Tom is happy his wife is safe. He warns everyone not to swim away from the boat. Later, the family sits together at the table to celebrate Ben's 13th birthday. They start by giving him presents. His father gives him a new laptop. His sister gives him a jellyfish mask. His mother gives him a necklace from the Dominican Republic, which is believed to protect against bad spirits. The four of them take a photo together and get ready to cut the birthday cake. At that moment, Cassie gets a video call from her boyfriend, Adam. He is happy to see her, but his call is suddenly interrupted when the camera shows a powerful storm happening around his city. Cassie finds this very unusual, as she has never seen such a storm before. She tells her parents about it right away. At the same time, the family hears loud sounds coming from the water. They look and see humpback whales swimming very close to the boat. The whales seem to be moving to a new place. One of the whales crashes into the side of the boat. Tom goes into the water to check if the boat is damaged. A few minutes later, Tom comes back out of the water injured. He does not know what sea animal hurt him, but there is a deep cut on his shoulder. Julia quickly wraps his shoulder to stop the bleeding. Things get worse. One of the boat's propellers has been broken by the whales. The family now needs outside help to bring the boat back to shore. Julia tries to call for help using the boat's radio, but no one answers. Their mobile phones also have no signal. They can only wait and hope for help. Tom estimates they have enough food and water for 4 days. The situation gets even more dangerous when they see flashing lights falling from the sky. At first, they think these are meteorites. One falls very close to the boat. Tom tries to start the engine to move away, but the second propeller is also damaged, so the engine gets too hot and stops working. Tom looks more closely and realizes these are not meteorites. They are broken pieces of satellites, and more are falling toward the boat. Tom quickly holds his wife and children tightly, using his own body to protect them. Fortunately, nothing hits the boat directly. However, it is too dangerous to stay outside. The family goes inside the cabin and closes all the doors and windows. Despite this, the impact of the falling satellites causes the boat to shake violently and spin out of control. During all this movement, Ben falls and hurts himself. His parents help him up and make sure he is safe by placing him on the sofa. Tom puts life jackets on both children and tries hard to reach the radio to call for help. A strong storm then begins, making the boat rock even more. Julia's nose starts bleeding from the stress. Cassie feels very sick. Ben also feels very unwell and tries to go to his room, but the boat is rocking so much that he falls on the stairs. Julia and Tom help their children, and all four of them stay together in the cabin, waiting for the storm to pass. After many hours of fear and danger, the family wakes up the next morning. They are all safe, but the boat is badly damaged. They come out of the cabin to see what has happened. What they see shocks them completely. The boat is sitting in the middle of a vast, dry wasteland. The ocean is completely gone. There is nothing around them but an enormous desert. Tom thinks about what might have happened and shares his theory. He believes that the Earth's magnetic poles have reversed, just like they did about 700,000 years ago. When this happens, the positions of the oceans and land masses change. If this is true, massive waves would have moved across the planet, and millions of people may have died. Cassie breaks down when she hears this. She is terrified that something terrible has happened to Adam. She goes into the bedroom and locks the door. Her parents try to comfort her, but they know they cannot lose time. They get to work repairing the boat and collecting as much food and water as they can. Ben wants to help too. He takes the balloons left over from his birthday party, ties them to a rope, and lets them float in the air as a signal in case any other survivors are nearby. At the same time, Tom manages to fix the radio. He tries again to reach someone, and this time, a man responds. The man says his name is Now, and he is the captain of a submarine. His submarine had been exploring the deep sea, but because of the pole reversal, it became stuck underground. Captain Now says that this pole reversal may be the Earth's natural reaction to the pollution and environmental damage caused by humans. He also shares a very serious warning. The computer on his submarine shows that this event will happen again in less than a week. When it does, the ocean will return to where it was, and everything in its path will be completely destroyed. Captain Now strongly advises the family to find the highest possible ground before that happens. Without doing so, they will have no chance of surviving the enormous force of the returning ocean. Before ending the call, Tom asks whether the submarine could survive the impact. Captain Now believes it can, but adds one final difficult detail. There is only enough room on the submarine for 3 people. Tom and Julia are terrified for their children's lives. They beg Captain Now to allow Cassie and Ben to stay on the submarine so that they can survive the coming disaster. Captain Now agrees to this. He gives them the exact location of the submarine, which is 3 days of travel away from where they are. Now that they have a plan, Tom tells the family to rest for the night. He says they will begin the journey to the submarine the next morning. At sunrise, the group packs as much food and water as they can carry. Then Tom notices a strange man walking toward the boat. The man is carrying a harpoon and has a dog with him. Tom walks over to the man. As a friendly gesture, he offers the man a bottle of water, but the moment the man finishes drinking it, he punches Tom hard, knocking him down, and then strikes him with the harpoon. Julia sees this and runs desperately to help her husband. But the man delivers a final fatal blow to Tom's throat. Tom is killed. Julia is helpless. She turns and runs to warn her children, but the man throws his harpoon and it hits Julia in the shoulder, wounding her. Despite the pain, she runs to the boat, gets inside with her children, and locks the door. The man approaches the boat and tries to force his way in. Inside, Julia gives Cassie and Ben a flare gun. She tells them to hide inside the compartment beneath the sofa. She then locks herself in the bathroom, taking a knife with her to defend herself. Moments later, the man breaks into the boat. He grabs a can of food and begins searching for the survivors. Inside the bathroom, Julia wraps her wounded shoulder as best she can with whatever she can find. She can hear the man getting closer and closer to the bathroom door. Finally, the man opens the bathroom door, expecting to find someone inside, but at the very last moment, Julia escapes through a small opening in the side of the boat. Outside, Julia is immediately met by the man's dog, which begins barking loudly to alert its owner. The dog moves toward Julia, and she has no choice but to strike it with the knife. When the man hears his dog crying out in pain, he runs to find it and discovers the dog's body on the ground. This makes him even angrier. He sets off to hunt Julia down. Julia manages to sneak back onto the boat through the front. She is searching for her children when the man finds her. He strikes her in the face and knocks her to the ground. He then grabs her by the legs and begins pulling her. Julia fights back and kicks him hard in a very sensitive area. She tries to take her knife back, but he disarms her and slams her face into the ground, injuring her nose. The violent struggle continues. Cassie and Ben are watching from their hiding place, frozen with fear and not knowing what to do. The man hits Julia in the face again, pins her against the sofa, and begins twisting her neck. Julia is unable to resist. Unable to watch any longer, Cassie pulls out the flare gun, pushes open the compartment door of the sofa, and fires a shot directly at the man. The shot hits him clearly. The flare also starts a fire in the kitchen. Julia quickly rushes to grab the bag of food and supplies before everything is burned. The moment she picks up the backpack, the man tries to attack her again. She kicks him hard in the face and runs to her children. Cassie and Ben rush outside and find their father's body. They hold him and beg him to wake up, but it is too late. Tom has died. There is no time to grieve. The man with the harpoon is still alive and is walking toward them. Julia, Cassie, and Ben run toward the mountains as fast as they can. Once they are far enough away, they stop briefly to catch their breath and recover their energy. Ben is deeply distressed about what happened to his father. He blames himself, believing that the signal balloons he put up earlier attracted the dangerous man to their boat. His mother firmly reassures him that none of this is his fault. She promises to keep her children safe. After this short rest, the 3 of them continue their journey toward the submarine. A short while later, Ben comes across a hammerhead shark lying in the open. The shark is struggling to survive without water. Julia tells Ben to keep moving. When she looks through her binoculars, she sees the man with the harpoon still following them in the distance. The family moves quickly to get away. As they travel, they pass many clear signs of human pollution, scattered oil barrels and plastic bottles lying everywhere across the dry land. After many more hours of walking, Ben begins to feel very unwell from dehydration. Julia quickly reaches for the water bottle, but discovers that Cassie had not closed the lid properly. Almost all the water has spilled out. Only a few drops remain. Julia is furious with her daughter. Without water, they cannot survive the rest of the journey. The two argue. Cassie says the entire journey is pointless. Julia scolds her sharply for saying this and tells everyone to keep going. Eventually, the 3 of them find a crashed plane sitting in the middle of the desert. They decide to use it as a shelter to rest for the remainder of the day. Julia sits down on one of the seats and looks at the birthday photo they took together as a family. She misses Tom deeply. Cassie takes this quiet moment and asks her mother to tell her how she and Tom first met. Julia begins to tell the story. Julia says she met Tom when she was doing her internship as a trainee doctor at a hospital. Tom had been brought in after suffering an injury during a field research trip for his university course. Julia looked after him. The moment Tom regained consciousness and saw her, he fell in love with her instantly. The two began a relationship. When his course ended, Tom had to go back to Germany, but a few months later he came back with a job offer in Miami. The only condition attached to accepting the job was that Julia had to say yes too. So Tom asked her to marry him. Without any hesitation, she said yes. Together, they built a happy life. Now, that life has been torn apart by the same man who is still pursuing what remains of their family. After hearing the story, all three of them cry together, missing Tom deeply. They then try to rest. Hours pass. Julia and Ben fall asleep. Cassie wakes up and quietly goes outside the plane to use the toilet. Without her realizing it, the man has found them again and slowly creeps up behind her, ready to attack. What he does not realize is that Julia has also woken up. Without a moment's hesitation, she attacks him from behind with the knife, driving it into his back, followed by a powerful strike directly to his heart. Even after the man falls, Julia does not stop. Filled with rage and grief over Tom's death, she continues to strike him again and again, letting out all of her pain and anger. Cassie watches her mother in shock. She then steps forward and holds her mother tightly until Julia drops the knife and comes back to her senses. The man who had been hunting them is finally dead. The family can rest safely for the remainder of the night. The next morning, they go to check on the man's body, but it has been completely destroyed and torn apart by some animal. Julia is alarmed. Whatever did this to the body is something even more dangerous than the man himself. She tells her children to move on immediately. In the fierce heat, Ben begins walking on his own ahead of the group and finds a small puddle of water on the ground. Without thinking, he starts drinking from it. Julia and Cassie rush over and pull him away before he can take in too much, knowing the water is contaminated and could make him very sick. After this, they bring Ben to an open area filled with chairs and set up a makeshift camp. Julia uses medicine from their supplies to treat Ben and prevent him from becoming ill from the dirty water. Too exhausted to continue, they all stop to rest. Then Julia hears a strange sound coming from the distance. It grows louder and louder and sounds like many legs or paws moving at great speed. With no time to waste, she wakes her children and the three of them run. After climbing a hill, they find a group of survivors who have set up a camp on a large stranded cargo ship. Julia calls out for help, but the survivors, who are armed with pistols and shotguns, refuse to help and retreat inside the cargo containers, closing the doors. Julia shouts desperately, warning them that enormous creatures, which look like giant crabs, are approaching fast, but the survivors still refuse to open the doors. Julia orders her children to climb up onto the containers immediately before the creatures reach them. Cassie and Ben get up safely. Then Julia climbs up too, but one of the creatures attacks her as she climbs, leaving a serious wound on her foot. She barely makes it up in time. The three of them sit on top of the containers and try to stay safe. The same cannot be said for the survivors inside. The giant crab-like creatures break through the gaps in the container walls and kill every single one of them. Shortly after, Julia loses consciousness due to her foot wound. When she wakes up the next day, her children are nowhere to be seen. She gets up and goes looking for them. She soon finds Cassie, who had gone off to look for help but found no one alive. The family then searches the site for useful supplies and finds the weapons that had belonged to the dead survivors. Using the gunpowder from the ammunition, Julia burns the wound on her leg herself to stop it from becoming infected. Julia then turns on the radio and speaks to Captain Now. She tells him about Tom's death and the enormous crab-like creatures they encountered. Captain Now explains that these animals are arthropods, creatures from the deepest parts of the ocean that are now trying to survive in their new environment above ground. Because of the very high levels of oxygen in the air, these creatures are becoming increasingly aggressive and will attack and kill anything in their path. Captain Now then urges the family to hurry. Not only are the arthropods a serious threat, but the submarine's instruments now show that the ocean will return sooner than originally expected. Captain Now warns the family that within just a few hours, the entire area will be flooded by the returning ocean. If they do not reach the submarine in time, the force of the sea will sweep them away. To help them find the right direction, Captain Now fires a signal shot into the air. Julia sees it and now knows exactly where to go. The path to the submarine leads through a large, deep ravine with very narrow stone paths along the sides. It is difficult and dangerous, but the family presses on without stopping. In the middle of the journey, rocks suddenly begin to fall from above. One large rock is about to land directly on Cassie and Ben. Julia throws herself at them and pushes them out of the way, saving their lives. However, the fallen rocks now form a wall between Julia and her children. There is no way to climb over it. Julia tells Cassie and Ben to keep moving and get to the submarine without her. Even though they refuse to leave her behind, Julia insists firmly. She promises them she will find a way to reach them. Reluctantly, the children turn and run toward the submarine. When Cassie and Ben arrive at the submarine, they find Captain Now, but he is in a very bad state. He too has been attacked by the arthropods. He has lost a great deal of blood and does not have much time left to live. Despite this, he is determined to keep the two siblings safe inside the submarine. He also tells them that he is giving up his own place on board so that their mother can have it instead. The moment Cassie hears this, she makes the decision to go back and find Julia. Before she leaves, Ben takes off the necklace his mother gave him as a birthday gift, the one meant to protect against bad spirits, and gives it to Cassie so that it will keep her safe on the way. Cassie runs back into the ravine. Meanwhile, Julia can hear the arthropods approaching. She raises the shotgun she picked up at the survivors' camp and fires at the creatures, but there are far too many of them, and she is almost completely out of ammunition. With no way to escape and no bullets left, Julia simply stands and waits. She sees no way out. Then, at that very moment, Cassie appears at the top of the rocks above her. She reaches her arm down toward her mother and tells her there is one seat left on the submarine. Julia finds one final burst of strength within herself. With Cassie pulling her from above, she climbs up the rocks. The two of them reach the top together. Julia and Cassie run as fast as they can back toward the submarine, with hundreds of arthropods chasing close behind them. When they reach it, they find that Captain Now has already passed away. At the same time, the area around them is being completely surrounded, both by the arthropods and by the returning sea. Julia, Cassie, and Ben climb into the submarine and seal it shut. Through the submarine's window, they see an enormous wave coming toward them. They rush to their seats and fasten their seatbelts. Then the ocean returns with full, terrifying force. It floods the entire desert region and slams into the submarine, throwing it violently from side to side. As the submarine shakes and spins, Julia's mind fills with memories. Tom's death, the man who hunted them across the wasteland, and all the danger they have faced. These painful thoughts mix with the fear of the powerful sea crashing around them, but the family refuses to give up. They reach out and hold each other's hands. Together, they resist the force of nature and hold on, hoping they will survive once more. After many long hours of uncertainty, the family wakes up. The submarine has come to a stop. It has settled on dry ground. Julia opens the hatch at the top of the submarine, and the three of them climb out. They find themselves standing in front of a city that has been completely destroyed by the massive waves. Everything around them has been wiped out, but her children are alive and standing beside her. Julia holds them both tightly, overwhelmed with relief. What began as a simple family holiday on a yacht turned into a desperate fight for survival. Perhaps, after a tragedy of this enormous scale, humanity can finally learn to live in true harmony with the natural world.